Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. The lady from our first story was stupid, ignorant, and nosy, on top of being incredibly rude. Hurts my head sometimes thinking how dumb people can be. It's a good thing OP pressed charges. So before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Random person on street accuses me of kidnapping 6 kids. So backstory first, this happened a few years ago when I was 20 and working in youth/kids care. I was doing a social year after school where people can take a look into a job and actually work full-time hours for a year for basically no pay at all. I got $300 a month, but some actually get nothing. Usually you have someone else help you with a lot of things, so you're not the only person taking responsibility, even though over the year you gain some. Well, I was in a youth center, which is basically a center where young kids and teens can come in to relax after school, but we also offered first contact for abuse and such things. The place where I was only had me and my boss working there, so naturally I had to do way more than other kids working in 300 to 400 employee companies, and also took a lot more responsibility than in hindsight I should have. I know this turns out long, but it's necessary information to grasp the whole story. So we already had enough hours to work on weekends and stuff, which was all not mandatory for me, but I still did because weekends were the real fun part of it. So in school breaks, we also offered a morning care for younger kids, age 6 to 10. Since working for 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. isn't possible all the time, me and my boss split the time and were planning morning events so my boss would do them while I would take care of the kids on regular mornings at the time. We also had 2 younger sweet girls, aged 17 and 18, coworker 1 and 2, helping us out as a small-time job, and both didn't have any license or anything for taking care of kids. So me, who got the license at the start of the year, and my boss always were in charge. In the afternoon, we still had regular openings, and I probably worked some 70-hour weeks in those, and then like 25-hour weeks afterwards. I would have a lot of crazy stories, but this one takes the cake by far. So now we're getting to the story. At around the last quarter of my year, my boss had some problems with the people renting his house, so he called me the day before and asked if I could set in the morning care for him an extra day, which was no big deal for me. We actually had planned to go to the city with the kids, 15-minute car drive, and to a museum, plus eating some ice cream from our money. So he told me I could either cancel the event or just do it since he trusted me enough. This was kinda a big thing for me since usually you didn't get that much responsibility, and it showed I was trusted enough, plus I also love this kind of work, so I just went by with the event as usual. The parents were all okay with me telling them I would do the event, so everything went fine. We drove there with 11 persons in total in 2 cars, me in one and the other 2 girls in 2 more cars, and went to the museum. I was really happy with how everything went, and we didn't had much stuff going bad or kids misbehaving or anything, just the usual kid stuff. That was until we got to the cafe to eat some ice cream. We were sitting outside just eating the ice cream, ready to get the cars afterwards, when a lady, EL, approaches us. I did not see her immediately as I was busy paying for the ice cream, but coworkers later told me she just came up, took a look at our group, and asked one of the younger kids where his parents was too, which the kids responded that they were at work. She then turned to coworker 1 and demanded to know what they were doing here and why she was alone with all those kids and why they were not in school. Well, coworker 1 had other coworker 2 sit right on the other end of the table and explained that they were part of a youth care program and that the kids are on summer break. I never asked how the conversation turned out, but when I got to the table, EL demanded to speak with the boss of the group, to which I turned to her and asked, "Excuse me, lady, I'm responsible for the group. What is the matter?" The lady just looks at me and snaps. "There's no way you are responsible here. I am calling the police right now. Someone this young can't take care of so many children," in a very unpolite manner. So now I get this really bad feeling and signal coworkers to get the kids a bit away and out of hearing range so they could get words from EL. I still try to be polite and say I'm sorry, but I indeed work for my place plus community. We went to the museum today and are just preparing to get back to the center so that the moms can pick up their children. I would also appreciate if you could watch your manners as there are children nearby. Well, I thought that would end the conversation, but no. EL gets this ridiculous thought in her head and screeches, not loud but in a really annoying tone, "I don't believe you. With your face, you must be a psychopath and you've kidnapped these children. Coworkers are probably your accomplices. I will call the police." My eyes widen in shock as I realize what she just did. I try again and say, "Listen, EL, I work at that place and you can call them anytime, and I'm also an adult. What you're doing is slander, and I hope you'll leave us alone now." I would say I wasn't as polite as before, but was not going around any borders either, even using the polite form of you in my language, while she was using the impolite, disrespectful form over the whole exchange. She already had her hands on her phone and told me that a police officer can decide that. At this point, various people have stopped and looked, but most thought it wasn't a big deal, since nobody of us really yelled or anything. At this point, I know I should just wait and phone my boss first to tell him about the incident, and then one of the moms to trigger a phone chain to announce that we will be later, but I would drop off the kids at their house if needed to. Well, officer comes up like 10 minutes afterwards and asks what is going on, to which EL now screams in the middle of the street that I and coworker 1+2 should be arrested for kidnapping these 6 children. By now, a few people are standing by as the officer walks to me and asks what's going on. I tell him where I work and that the lady had harassing me and the kids for almost 20 minutes now, including calling me a kidnapper. The officer looks a bit uneasy and asks me if he can call my community's office, as this is a community service, so I am employed by the community, as well as seeing my ID. I comply, and a phone call later, it's all settled. The lady just tries to storm off, hearing this mumbling about how the parents are irresponsible for keeping their childs in my care. This was time for Awesome Mom's appearance, AM. She apparently was in the city as she got called on the phone chain and decided to come for the rescue and found us just at this moment. She stops the lady in her tracks and scolds her on all the stuff she did, as well as telling her all the stuff I did with her kid. Her kid was on every care program we had. This is not a bad thing, as we actually do a lot of education and kids love it. And we knew each other quite well. The officer, seeing this, is now slightly amused and asked if there was anything else. I say yes and ask him if there's any ground of me pressing charges against the lady for slander too, which he happily applied, with all the bystanders hearing what the lady said there certainly was. I gladly pressed charges against the women. In the end, she actually had to pay a fine in the lower thousands, as well as paying me money for the slander. It could have ended way worse for her if I actually had a problem finding a job after my social year, and could have resulted in years of prison for her. The kids were a bit mortified at first, but it was certainly a story to tell. Also, all the props to coworkers for staying calm with the kids the whole time. I ended up giving them €20 vouchers for a clothes store for how they acted. I honestly think you handled the situation like a champ. I can't believe people like that who will ruin other people's lives just because of their ignorance. And our next story. Deli Guys' last day. Years ago, I was a driver delivering from a distribution center to a company's retail grocery stores. While getting unloaded at a store, I was told this story by one of the managers. They had several managers, one of whom was a nitpicky wannabe hardbutt. They also had a guy who worked at the deli counter who served things out of the deli case and cut meat and cheese to order. Deli guy was cool, laid back, one of those guys who'd get his work done without necessarily doing everything by the book to the letter. Hardbutt hated him and was always looking for things to lecture about and write up. Deli guy never seemed to let this get under his skin until one day it did. According to other employees, Hardbutt liked to ride Deli Guy for an entire shift. Every little thing, Deli Guy never raised his voice, never stopped smiling, and finished his shift, taking over all the cleanup at the end. After he left that night, Deli Guy called the cool manager who told me this story. All he said was, "Dude, I quit. I'm sorry." The next day, morning deli shift comes in and they can't find the parts to the meat and cheese cutters. The things Deli Guy was supposed to clean at the end of his shift? After a frantic search, calls to former Deli Guy that went straight to voicemail, the missing critically important cutters were found. They were in a big trash bin, like the ones you put your trash out on the curb in. The bin was filled with water, The bin filled with water with the parts for the cutting machines in the bottom or in the freezer. They'd been there for 7 hours. On the bin was a note. "Hey Hardbutt, I quit. Eat a D. Former Deli Guy." Some days I think of that guy. I hope to be as cool as him one day. I'd say it's petty because it was pretty low effort, didn't really do any lasting harm, but at the time caused significant short-term inconvenience. And our last story. HOA, a mansion and the view. I lived in this town surrounded by magnificent vistas. There was a small development on the outskirts for upscale homes and mansions. Below the development were a few older homes. Many celebrities and business owners had vacation properties in the area, multi-million-dollar houses they used maybe 1 month out of the year. Real estate had always been at a premium. There was one older home amongst all these giant view lots. A new buyer was a guy who owned a slew of RV dealerships and had obscene amounts of money, so he bought the most prominent lot on the top of the hill as you entered the development of maybe 20 lots. His project was a massive stucco structure with a multi-car garage and a much bigger RV storage space with a huge roll-up garage door. Think of the biggest RVs you've ever seen, and he had a garage built for it with an automatic door. The house was a nondescript sand color with a red-tiled roof, and the entire lot was tastefully landscaped with different kinds of rocks, small mounds here and there, and a few shrubs to be low maintenance. The back of the property was fenced in with an 8-foot or higher block wall. The fence itself probably cost $100K. His neighbor was a school teacher who'd lived there before the development started and had a modest house. He decided to take advantage of the skyrocketing land prices in the neighborhood and sell, except no one wanted his crappy house when there were much larger empty lots available. He decided the real issue was that the new behemoth blocked his view, and that's why no one wanted to buy his 3-bedroom ranch house at mansion prices. It was really that his home didn't appeal to the market. So he became the president of the HOA, which included the older homes and the new development, and then the harassment started. The HOA had formed after the RV mansion construction had begun, but the home was so big it took almost a year to finish. The HOA had passed a design theme rule that all houses must be painted in a specific color palette, with the predominant color being a taupe that was darker than this man's standard beige stucco color house. The palette included the taupe and a selection of trim colors in pink, teal, or tan. It was intended to give the community a Santa Fe look and feel, which just happened to be the colors of the president's crappy house. The RV owner took the HOA to court, and the trial dragged on for a year. The guy never used the property, claiming it was still under construction during this time. He lost in court and had to repaint his property using only the design theme-approved colors. So the guy brought out his contractor and had him repaint the entire property the Pepto-Bismol pink trim color. Everything was painted this color: the house, the fence, the trim, and the rocks in the yard. Then he had the massive driveway to the garage done in the same pink stamped concrete. Even the garage doors were pink. He locked up the house and never stayed there. The HOA was in an uproar because this house could be seen at the top of the hill for miles. None of the other lot owners broke ground. The president's home didn't sell for 2 years. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.